Hi there, this is Max from Iridescent Color, and today I would like to talk about something we've all been doing wrong when using split tone in our looks. In order to explain what I mean, we need to take a step back and talk about our workflow. If you've been color grading for a while, you've probably heard a million times that all your adjustments and your look should happen scene referred, that is, before the final transform, and that is the safe way to do it, while doing anything after the display transform is unsafe. What if I told you that this is actually not always true, and even worse, that doing things like split tone before the DRT could ruin your grade? Let me explain. A lot of us have probably been told that in our looks, whites and blacks should always be neutral, and that our split tone curve should look something like this. Now, if we look at stills from famous movies, it's not hard to find examples that clearly violate this rule. It looks like in a lot of these cases, whites clearly have a warm tint to them and blacks can feel bluish, greenish or cyan. I've applied a random film print LUT to this gradient, and I just want to point out the shape of this curve. You can see how the channels don't converge back at the top. It has a creative white point, which is not a mistake but a purposeful decision, because as it turns out, this can often look more pleasing, cinematic, or emotionally meaningful. But this is where we run into a problem when applying split tone scene referred. I'm going to use the new Iridescent Color Split Tone Pro DCTL to demonstrate what I mean. Like some other split tone tools available, you have the option to open up the curve at the bottom and top, but this curve is actually lying to you. When evaluating your look, it's important to consider the entire system that forms the image. The DRT we use is part of that system, and therefore part of our look, so if we'd like to see what the net curve really looks like, we need to apply the entire node graph to our test image. Notice how the tone scale function of the DRT pushes these channels together at the top, no matter what we do in our split tone curve. And even worse, notice what happens to our shadows when we push the split hard. It turns out, applying things scene referred is not always the best option and can actually make our image look worse. Sometimes it is indeed better to do some operations on a formed image, that is, after the display transform. That's why I have implemented a new display mode in Split Tone Pro, which automatically activates when you select a display gamma in the color space dropdown. See what happens if we apply this DCTL downstream of the DRT. Look familiar? We get exactly the behavior that we saw in both the stills and the print LUT we examined, and it looks great. And to make sure this mode is perfectly safe, some of the sliders now behave different. As you can see, highlight split is now locked in subtractive mode to prevent clipping, and blacks actually stay neutral at all times. Remember what I said about considering the whole system? The way to get a tinted black point in this workflow is to simply raise the black point slightly in your tone curve upstream of your DRT. That's easy enough to do using the Filmic Tone Curve DCTL, and actually looks more cinematic than having a pure black point. Now we're pushing that black point into the colorful section of our split tone curve, which gives us really natural results. And what's more, instead of being locked into a fixed white point setting, you can choose any hue you'd like for where your whites land. One of my favorites is to have slightly cooler highlights, which is what you see on some Fujifilm stocks used in movies like The Lord of the Rings. This has the great side effect of giving highlights in skin tones more zing and dimensionality. And if you want even more organic subtlety, you can use the peak hue shift slider to skew the hue ever so slightly as it climbs up towards peak highlights. I'll make a separate video talking you through all the functions and sliders in this DCTL, but this should suffice for now. If you have any more questions or thoughts, feel free to comment under this video and reach out via email. I hope you found this video enlightening, and I'll see you again very soon.